The moment the car pulled up to his small, tidy home, he felt a strange mixture of curiosity and dread. He had never seen her before, not in person, and yet here she was, standing on his porch with rain soaking her designer coat, her eyes searching his, as if looking for something he didn't even know he had lost. She didn't knock, didn't wait. She just stepped forward and said, "I had to come. I couldn't let this happen without trying one more time." He froze, unsure if he should invite her in or turn her away. But something in her voice made him step aside. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the kind of tension that made your chest tighten and your heart race at the same time. Who was she? Why was she here? And why did it feel like everything was about to change? Before we dive in, if you love stories that warm the heart and remind us of the power of human connection, make sure to subscribe to Kindness Tales. Hit like if this story already gives you chills, and share your thoughts in the comments. I promise this one will stay with you. He was a single dad, working long hours in a small but busy marketing firm in the heart of Chicago. Life hadn't been easy since his wife left 2 years ago, leaving him to navigate diapers, bedtime stories, and the endless struggle of keeping a career afloat while being the only parent for a spirited 8-year-old daughter who somehow managed to run on twice the energy anyone thought possible. Some nights, after tucking her in and turning off the lights, he would sit at the kitchen table staring at unopened bills, trying to make sense of how life had gotten so complicated, so loud, so exhausting. He wasn't bitter, but he carried the quiet weight of responsibility, a mix of love and fear, hope and worry. He had grown used to the rhythm of this life, the small victories of scraped knees healed, lunches packed, and bedtime prayers whispered in the dark. Yet there was a loneliness he couldn't shake, a constant hum at the back of his heart that whispered of someone who could understand, someone who could walk beside him instead of simply passing by. Her life had been completely different. She was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, someone whose every move was scrutinized by the media and by her own board of directors. She had the perfect image, immaculate clothes, sharp intelligence, a fiancé whose family was equally polished and ambitious. Everyone assumed she had it all, and yet, despite the glossy exterior, she had been feeling a growing emptiness, a gnawing sense that something in her heart had been ignored for too long. Weeks before, she had been at the altar, poised to marry a man she realized she didn't love, someone she respected but couldn't feel the spark with, someone whose affection felt formal, almost rehearsed. She had watched herself smile, watched her hands tremble as she held his, and then, in a moment of dizzying clarity, she had whispered to her maid of honor that she couldn't do it. She couldn't pretend. She couldn't fake loving someone she didn't love. The news of her cancelled wedding had sent shockwaves through her, company and social circles alike, but she didn't care about the gossip or the scandal. What she did care about was the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she could find a connection that felt honest and alive. The story of how she even knew about him was almost accidental. Her company had been sponsoring a local literacy program where he volunteered after work. She had come to one of the events to give a speech and had noticed him immediately, not because he stood out in the crowd, but because he looked completely at ease surrounded by children, his laughter sincere, his attention wholly on them. There was no showmanship, no pretense, no need to impress anyone. She had watched him help a shy child with a book, bending down, smiling warmly, and she had felt something unfamiliar, something raw and human tug at her chest. Over the following weeks, she found herself thinking about that man, the single dad with kind eyes and a tired smile, wishing she could know him in the real, messy, authentic way that seemed impossible in her world. That day, as she stood on his doorstep, she was drenched from the rain but didn't care. She had made a decision she never thought she would have the courage for. She had cancelled her wedding, walked out of her life of perfection, and now, standing in front of him, she hoped he wouldn't dismiss her as just another rich woman meddling in ordinary lives. He, on the other hand, had no idea why she was there. All he saw was a beautiful woman dripping wet, staring at him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. His daughter, peeking from behind the curtain, whispered in awe, "Dad, who is she?" He swallowed hard, trying to find the words, and finally asked, "Why are you here?" Her answer was simple and honest. "Because I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. I had to meet you again. I had to know if maybe—" She hesitated, biting her lip. "If maybe this could be real. If maybe we could be real together." He blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Everything about this moment felt surreal, like the world had paused just for them. And then she smiled, a genuine, vulnerable smile that made his chest ache in a way he hadn't felt in years. Over the next few hours, they talked like strangers who had known each other forever. She asked about his daughter, his work, his favorite books. He asked her about her life, her ambitions, and carefully, about the life she had walked away from. She listened with empathy. Never judgment, never pressure, just curiosity and warmth. His daughter, shy at first, crept out from behind the couch and offered her a drawing she had made. She accepted it with tears in her eyes, kneeling down to hug the little girl, and for a brief moment, the three of them existed in a bubble of kindness and connection that seemed untouched by the chaos of the outside world. It wasn't easy. The practicalities of their lives were complicated. She was used to a world of board meetings, luxury, and strict schedules. He was used to scraped knees, late-night homework, and the constant balancing act of bills and childcare. But instead of focusing on differences, they focused on what mattered, their shared humanity, the capacity to care, the willingness to show up for each other. And slowly, trust began to form. He showed her the small joys of his life, cooking dinner with his daughter, weekend trips to the park, laughter echoing through the hallways of their tiny home. She shared pieces of her life too, vulnerabilities she had hidden behind her corporate armor, the fear of being alone, the longing for a connection that went beyond power and wealth. Each story, each shared secret, built a bridge between them. One afternoon, as the rain tapped gently on the windows in the house, smelled of fresh-baked cookies, his boss unexpectedly came by for a routine check-in. He had known about the cancelled wedding through the industry grapevine, but had not expected to see her standing there in the living room, smiling at the little girl and laughing at something he said. He froze, tears welling in his eyes, and whispered almost to himself, "I couldn't fake loving her either. I didn't know it would end like this, but I'm glad." It wasn't a confession to anyone else, just a raw, emotional acknowledgement of what honesty and courage could create when someone dared to follow their heart. The moment was fleeting, but it left a permanent mark, a reminder that living authentically mattered far more than maintaining appearances. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened in ways neither of them had anticipated. He found himself looking forward to the mornings when she would sit at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, talking about everything and nothing while his daughter built towers of blocks beside them. She found herself laughing more freely than she had in years, feeling appreciated and valued for who she truly was rather than the image she projected. There were challenges. Of course, logistics, societal expectations, the occasional misstep. But the foundation they were building was strong: honesty, kindness, and mutual respect. The real turning point came when she decided to make a gesture that spoke louder than any words. She didn't buy him expensive gifts or attempt to dazzle him with her wealth. Instead, she organized a small celebration in his backyard for his daughter's birthday, complete with handmade decorations, home-baked treats, and a group of neighborhood children who had grown fond of the new, unexpected family dynamic, watching him laugh until tears streamed down his face. Seeing his daughter beam with delight, she realized that this simple, messy, authentic joy was what she had been searching for all along. He too understood something crucial. Love didn't have to be perfect or scripted. It could be quiet, persistent, and woven into the rhythms of everyday life. It was in shared meals, whispered reassurances in the dark, helping each other carry burdens, celebrating victories both big and small. And it was most importantly about showing up without pretense, without expectation, and with a full heart. Months later, as they sat together in that same kitchen where it had all begun, he reached across the table, took her hand, and said, I never imagined my life could feel this full again. I didn't know it was possible to start over like this, to really feel hope. But you brought it back, she smiled, her eyes glistening, and whispered, "We brought it back together." It was a quiet affirmation, a gentle acknowledgement that courage, kindness, and honesty could transform lives in ways that money, power, and social status never could. The story didn't end with grand declarations or public ceremonies. It ended with the daily magic of human connection, the small, meaningful acts of love and kindness that build lasting bonds. It was a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is follow their heart, even when the path is uncertain, even when the world expects them to do otherwise. And it was proof that showing up fully and vulnerably can create ripples of joy that extend far beyond what we can imagine. In the end, life was quieter, fuller, warmer. The little house in Chicago became a home not just for him and his daughter, but for her too, and for the countless moments of laughter, comfort and support they shared. And the world, in its small and large ways, reminded them daily that kindness is contagious. When someone dares to be honest, when someone dares to care, it changes everything, not just for themselves, but for everyone whose life they touch. So today, remember that the smallest act of courage, the simplest gesture of love, can transform ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. Share your stories of kindness, hold space for honesty and connection, and know that sometimes showing up is the most powerful thing anyone can do.